My sister helped my parents mess up my face with some illegal skin whitening cream, so I cut ties with all of them for good. 3 years passed and out of nowhere she came back, scared out of her mind and begging me to help her. I've never met anyone as racist as my own family. In the summer, every time we went outside, my mom would keep count of how many times me and my older sister stepped into the sun. And when we got home, each time meant a hard slap. That was just part of our routine for years. Every morning, my mom would rub cheap skin lightener from the Dollar Tree all over our skin. The paler we looked, the better she treated us. I just wanted to be a normal kid, you know? But my sister? She turned into some kind of queen of self-erasure. She used to set alarms every 3 hours during the night so she wouldn't get any real sleep. Being tired all the time made her look paler, and to her that was the goal. I mean, what kind of twisted logic is that? Instead of telling her that her health mattered more than not looking Hispanic, our parents praised her. They treated her like she was royalty. Bought her pretty dresses, fancy jewelry, whatever she wanted. It didn't take long to figure out who the favorite was. And if I wanted their love, I figured I had to follow her lead. But I kept looking for other ways to earn it. I brought home straight A's, cleaned the house top to bottom every weekend, even gave them foot massages. And still they'd say, "Thanks, honey, but we really wish you put this much effort into getting pale like your sister." Then on my 17th birthday, my parents got me a hair bleaching product shipped in from Africa. I spent the whole day crying into this teddy bear I got from Barnes & Noble. My sister came in and hugged me, and for a second I thought she was going to say something comforting like maybe beneath our skin color I was still her sister and that's all that mattered. But instead she looked me in the eyes and said, "Maya, I love you and I want to help you. Look at me." I stared at her. She looked so unhealthy. Dark circles under her eyes like craters, chemical burns on her scalp from straightening her hair too much. And then she said, "If I can look this beautiful, so can you." I honestly thought she was joking at first, but there was this spark in her eyes. She meant it. She really believed destroying herself like that was the right path. So I started wearing foundation that was way too light for me, and kept my arms and legs covered up all the time. Not because I hated my brown skin or my curls, but because I wanted to make my parents happy. I mean, they were the ones who brought me into this world. Fast forward 7 years. I just graduated from the University of Florida. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I was feeling proud. I'd started running, spent a lot of time outdoors, and ended up embracing my natural Honduran beauty. And I loved it. Julian loved it too. He's half Puerto Rican, half Italian, and he totally got what it's like to deal with internalized racism. Even though he looks white, I figured everything would be fine with my parents. I was wrong. We showed up at my parents' house, hand in hand. I even put on a lighter foundation to try and soften the blow. When the door opened, I saw what used to be my sister. Except now she looked even worse. Pale, depressed, and scary thin. My heart cracked. And I guess hers did too, because the second she saw us, she shouted, "Dios mío, what are you doing to our bloodline?" Julian squeezed my hand tight like he was telling me silently, "It's okay. I've got you." I was already crying. Then my mom saw me. "My love, what have you done to yourself?" she yelled, trying to mess up my slicked-back bun with her hands to fix it. Then she laid eyes on Julian. Her mouth dropped open like it was gonna fall right off her face. "Ah, you almost had me thinking this monkey was actually your boyfriend," she sneered. Then she laughed like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. My dad grabbed my arm to pull me inside. But that wasn't the gentle grip I remembered from childhood. This one hurt. "Get away from me," I screamed, tears pouring down my face. Right then my skin started blistering like crazy. I was peeling everywhere. As I screamed, Julian called 911. I thought maybe my parents would finally realize they'd gone too far. But nope. My dad tried to snatch the phone from Julian. He shouted, "Pain is beauty. Armida will be beautiful." My face felt like it had been dunked in boiling hot sauce. Over and over. Thank God the ambulance still showed up. By the time nurses saw me, my eyebrows were gone, burnt right off. I woke up after a skin graft surgery, and Julian was there, holding my hand and whispering that I looked beautiful. But then I checked my phone. It had blown up. Dozens of missed calls and texts. The first voicemail was just full of rage, telling me I was a disgrace. The next one was threatening. By the 10th message, my sister was begging me not to press charges. "They're our parents," she said. They just want what's best for us. Please come home so we can fix this. I couldn't believe she was still defending them. Her voice sounded empty, like she gave up a long time ago. Julian sat next to me as I played the messages, getting more and more worried. Maya, he said, this isn't normal. What they did to you, that's abuse. It's always been abuse. He held my hand carefully, avoiding the four in my arm. And even though I knew he was right, hearing it out loud finally made something inside me click. All these years I'd been chasing love that should have been given freely. I let them hurt me, thinking that was just part of being family. I made excuses for their cruelty and blamed myself for never being good enough. Later that day, the hospital social worker came in to talk. She asked about my burns, and for the first time ever I told the full truth. I can't go into everything here. Check the full story on my channel if you want the rest. But yeah, I ended up pressing charges while I was still in the hospital. The social worker helped me file a report, and I was shaking so bad I could barely hold the pen. The officer taking my statement, Delgado, he was this older guy with kind eyes. Looked like he'd seen stuff like this before. You're doing the right thing, he told me while I explained the years of abuse. Not gonna lie, I almost backed out like 62 times during that talk. There's this weird guilt that hits you when you turn your parents in, even when they've literally burned your face with bleach. Julian never left my side. He held my hand the whole time, brought me real food because hospital food? Garbage. The nurses kept calling him my husband, and we didn't even correct them. Felt nice. Like maybe someday I could have a real family. My phone kept blowing up again, so I just turned it off. The doctor said my blood pressure was getting too high from the stress. Mom kept switching between threats and guilt trips. Dad wrote these long essays about loyalty and how I was betraying our heritage. The irony of him talking about heritage while trying to bleach it off me wasn't lost. The worst messages came from my sister, Isabel. They're going to take me away if you do this, she wrote. Please, Maya, I need them. I don't know how to live any other way. That one hit hard. I knew exactly what she meant. When your whole identity is built around making others happy, tearing that down is terrifying. 3 days later, I was discharged. My face was still wrapped up, and I looked like something from a low-budget horror flick. The doctor said I'd need to come back for months to check how the grafts were healing. They also gave me a cream that cost more than my rent, but thanks to Julian Insurance, most of it was covered. We went straight to Julian Place. I couldn't go back to mine, not with the risk of my parents showing up. His place was tiny, just one bedroom, mismatched furniture, a kitchenaka you could barely turn around in, but I'd never felt safer anywhere. That first night I broke down. I mean, ugly crying. Julian just held me while I let it all out. I kept saying I should have acted sooner. That maybe I should have protected Isabel. That maybe I was being dramatic. Julian just listened, wiping my tears gently around the bandages. Around 2 a.m. I told him, you know what's crazy? Part of me still wants them to love me. How messed up is that? The next morning, someone knocked on the door. I freaked thinking it was my parents. Julian checked. It wasn't them. It was Officer Delgado and another cop. We spoke to your parents, Delgado said when I finally came out. They're saying it was just a misunderstanding. That you had an allergic reaction. Of course they were. That's been their excuse for everything. The other officer, Officer Tanaka, asked if I had proof of the abuse, photos of the slaps, reports, anything. I didn't. I mean, who takes pictures when they're being abused as a kid? Who keeps empty bottles of the stuff that burned them? I started to panic, thinking they'd walk free again. But Julian stepped in. The hospital has a chemical analysis of what was on her face, he said. That should show it wasn't anything safe. Officer Tanaka nodded. We'll get that report. In the meantime, we've issued a temporary restraining order. They're not allowed near you. After they left, I looked at my phone again. 21 missed calls from Mom, 17 from Dad, 28 from Isabel, and a flood of texts. The latest one from Isabel made my stomach twist. They're saying you're mentally unstable, that you've always made up stories. They even have pictures of you smiling at family events to prove it. I showed Julian the message. They're going to twist everything, I said. They're gonna spin it and make me look like I'm the crazy one. Julian suggested I reach out to anyone who might have seen the abuse over the years. First person that came to mind was Mrs. Shaw, our old neighbor. Back when things got bad at home, she'd sometimes let me hide out in her apartment. Then there was Mr. Carter, my high school guidance counselor. He once noticed the makeup I'd used to cover up bruises, but when I told him I'd fallen, he didn't press. I spent the next few days on the phone, trying to heal while calling anyone who might remember something. Most folks just remembered that something felt off with my family, but no one had anything solid. Mrs. Shaw had moved to Arizona. Mr. Carter vaguely recalled being concerned but didn't have any documentation. I was starting to lose hope, until I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Tasha from college. Julian gave me your number. I still have those pictures from freshman year, when you had those chemical burns on your neck. I'd totally forgotten about those. Tasha had taken them at a dorm party when my makeup had worn off. I'd been mortified and begged her to delete them, but apparently she never did. I called her right away. She said she'd send them. Meanwhile, Julian was still being a total rock. He shifted his work schedule to drive me to doctor's appointments, cooked actual meals instead of the ramen I'd been living on, and never once complained about all my stuff cluttering his tiny apartment. One night, I even caught him researching skincare treatments for chemical burns when he thought I was asleep. About a week after I filed the report, I got a call from a woman named Marissa. She was a victim advocate from the DA's office. She told me they were looking into filing charges against my parents, but they still needed more information. "We have the hospital records and a chemical analysis," she said. "The cream you were burned with had hydroquinone levels way over the legal limit, plus mercury compounds that are totally banned in the US. I wasn't shocked. My parents always hunted down the strongest, sketchiest products, thinking the more toxic, the more effective. But what did shock me was when Marissa said, "We also have a statement from your sister." My heart practically stopped. "Isabel?" She gave a statement. Marissa hesitated. "Not exactly what you're hoping for. She's backing up your parents. Says you've always been jealous of her, and that you're making this all up for attention." I couldn't even respond. I just hung up and flung my phone across the room. Julian rushed over and held me while I sobbed again. I was so damn tired of crying. "She's scared," he said softly. "She's still living with them, right? She's doing what she has to do to survive." I knew he was right, but it still hurt like hell. Isabel had lived through everything I had, sometimes even worse. How could she lie now? The next day I tried something different. I called her instead of texting, and to my surprise she picked up. "Maya, you need to stop this," she said right away, whispering like she didn't want anyone to hear. "They're so angry. Dad smashed the coffee table yesterday. I've never seen him like this." I took a slow breath. "Isabel, they hurt us. They're still hurting you. Look at yourself. When's the last time you ate a full meal or slept through the night?" "I'm fine," she snapped. "I'm beautiful. Everyone says so." "You're disappearing," I said quietly. "Every time I see you, there's less of you." There was silence on the line, long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then she whispered, "I don't know how to be any other way." "Neither did I told her. "But I'm learning. And you can too." She hung up. I called back, but it went straight to voicemail. So I left her a message telling her I loved her, and that there was a place for her at Julian if she ever needed it. The case against my parents dragged on. There were interviews, piles of paperwork, more interviews. The DA finally charged them with assault and child endangerment, at least for the most recent incident. But all the years of past abuse? That was harder to prove. Marissa explained it clearly. Without witnesses or documentation, it was just my word against theirs. Julian suggested I start writing everything down, every detail I could remember. "Even if it doesn't help the case, it might help you process all of it," he said. So I bought a cheap notebook from the campus bookstore and started filling it with memories. The time my mom slapped me so hard my nose bled, just for playing in the sprinklers. The Christmas when Isabel got a gold necklace, and I got another bottle of skin-lightening lotion. All the mornings I spent having my hair yanked straight while being told how ugly my curls were. Writing it all down was like cleaning out a wound. Stung. But it was necessary. Some nights I could barely get through a paragraph before shutting the notebook. Other times I wrote for hours, pages soaked with tears. Then about 3 weeks after everything blew up on Thanksgiving, I got a call from my Aunt Carmen, my mom's sister, the one who lives in Miami. We weren't close. She'd moved to Florida when I was still a kid, and we'd only ever seen her at weddings and funerals. Maya, I just heard what happened, she said, her accent stronger than I remembered. Your mother called me crying, saying you're making up awful lies about them. My stomach dropped. Here we go, I thought. Now they're dragging the whole extended family into this. It's not lies, Tia. They've been abusing me and Isabel for years. There was a pause. Then she said 2 words that knocked the wind out of me. I know. Wait, what? No, she corrected herself. I suspected. The way your mother was obsessed with your appearance. How you girls never played outside. I brought it up once and she got so defensive I never mentioned it again. I should have done more. I sank onto Julian's couch, my knees weak. Why are you telling me all this now? Because I believe you. And because I found something. She told me that when she and my mom were kids, their grandmother had done similar things to her. She found old journals my mom had written back then, diaries filled with stories of bleaching creams and being pressured to look more European. Turns out it had happened to her too. It didn't excuse what my parents had done, but it helped me understand where some of it came from. The cycle had started long before me. My mom didn't just pass down trauma, she inherited it too. Aunt Carmen offered to mail me the journals and even said she'd testify if I needed her. She also said I could come stay with her in Miami if I wanted to be farther from my parents. I thanked her but told her I was okay at Julian for now. The next day I had another follow-up at the dermatologist. The doctor was happy with my progress. The redness was fading and my new skin was healing well. There'd be some scarring but way less than they originally thought. You're lucky, she said while looking me over. This could have been a lot worse. As we left the clinic, I spotted someone in the parking lot. It was Isabel leaning against a car, looking even skinnier than the last time I saw her. When she noticed us, she straightened up and walked over real slow. What are you doing here? I asked, genuinely surprised. I followed Mom's car when she went grocery shopping, she said. I saw your appointment on the calendar. Julian stood behind me, not saying anything, but I could feel him, solid and steady. A quiet kind of shield. Isabel looked at him nervously, then turned her attention back to me. I've been thinking about what you said, she whispered. About disappearing. I looked in the mirror this morning and I didn't recognize myself. I wanted to hug her, but when I stepped forward, she flinched. Isabel, you can get help. You can get out. She shook her head fast. I can't. They're watching me all the time now. Dad took my phone. I'm using Mom's while she's shopping. She kept glancing around like she was expecting someone to jump out. I don't have anywhere to go. Julian stepped in, no hesitation. You can stay with us. We'll make room. Isabel looked at him like he'd just spoken a different language. The idea that someone might help her with no strings attached, it genuinely confused her. Why would you do that? She asked. You don't even know me. You're Maya's sister, he said. And to him, that was enough. She was about to say something else when her phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face went white. Mom's done shopping. I have to go. Before she left, she reached into her pocket and handed me a tiny USB drive. I found this in Dad's office. It has their financial records. They've been buying that skin bleach from overseas for years. Everything's on here, the payments, shipping info, all of it. I took the drive stunned. Isabel, this could be huge. I know, she said. That's why I took it. Julian squeezed my hand gently. She's stronger than she thinks, he said. We both are, I replied. That night, we looked through the files together. Isabel wasn't lying. The drive had years of transactions, purchases of illegal whitening creams from sellers in Africa and Asia. The ingredient lists were horrifying. Mercury, high-dose hydroquinone, and something called clobetasol propionate, a steroid that, according to Google, should never touch anyone's face long-term. I called Marissa right away. She sounded genuinely excited. This was the kind of evidence that could really shift things in our favor. She asked me to bring the drive into her office the next morning. Still, I couldn't stop worrying about Isabel. What if she got caught? What if our parents followed her? Julian suggested we tidy up the apartment and make sure we had food she'd actually want. I remembered she used to love quesadillas before she started barely eating, so we stocked up for that. But the next day came and went, no sign of her. I texted the number she'd called from, but there was no reply. By evening, I was pacing the apartment, imagining the worst. Maybe she couldn't get away, Julian said. Or maybe she's scared. We were just about to eat without her when we heard a soft knock at the door. Julian checked the peephole and opened it fast. Isabel stood there, clutching a small backpack to her chest. Her face even paler than before. "They know I took the drive," she said as she stepped inside. "Dad tore the house apart looking for it. When he couldn't find it, he started screaming at Mom. I left while they were fighting." I pulled her into a hug, and this time, she didn't pull away. She felt so small and light in my arms. Like holding a little bird that had been through a storm. "You're safe now," I told her, even though deep down I wasn't totally sure that was true. While Julian made quesadillas, I helped Isabel get settled in. We didn't have much room, but we'd cleared a corner of the living room and laid out an air mattress with clean sheets and a warm blanket. Isabel looked at it like we'd put her in a fancy hotel. She sat on the edge and said quietly, "I haven't slept more than 3 hours straight in years. Mom used to say beautiful people don't need much sleep." Well, I told her, "Tonight you can sleep as long as you want. No alarms. No rules." We ate dinner together and I noticed her old habits showing up again, taking tiny bites, pushing food around on her plate to make it look like she'd eaten more than she had. I didn't say anything. Recovery takes time. For both of us. After we finished eating, she took a shower. When she came out, she was wearing one of Julian's oversized t-shirts that hung off her like a dress. That's when I noticed the bruises on her arms. Ones I hadn't seen before. "Did they hurt you when they realized the drive was gone?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. Isabel looked down at the marks like she hadn't even noticed them before. "Dad grabbed me," she said quietly. "He does that when he's mad." She said it like she was talking about the weather. I took photos of the bruises with my phone, more evidence. Then I gently helped her rub healing cream onto the sore spots. After that, we sat on the air mattress together in silence, not really knowing what to say. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry I told them you were lying. I was scared." "I know," I said. "You don't need to apologize." She was out cold minutes later, exhaustion catching up with her. I covered her with another blanket and joined Julian in his room. We kept our voices low, talking about what came next. Having Isabel with us changed everything. Now we had to protect her too. The next morning I called Marissa to update her. She suggested bringing Isabel in to give her own statement, now that she was safely out of the house. Isabel agreed, even though you could see the fear all over her face. "What if they don't believe me either?" she asked as we drove to the DA's office. "What if they think I'm lying too?" "The bruises help," I told her, even though it broke me a little to say it. "And now we have the financial records too." Isabel's interview lasted over 3 hours. Julian and I waited outside, barely saying a word. When she finally came out, her eyes were red and puffy, but she looked different. Lighter. Like she'd just dropped a backpack she'd been hauling around for years. "They believe me," she said softly, like she couldn't believe it herself. "They're adding more charges now." Marissa followed her out and confirmed it. With Isabel's statement and the USB drive, the case had gotten a lot stronger. Now they were adding charges for child abuse, child endangerment, and assault for both of us, plus charges related to importing illegal chemicals. "We'll be requesting a court date soon," she told us. "You'll both likely need to testify." Just the thought of seeing our parents again made my stomach twist. But I nodded. "We'll be ready." That afternoon, Officer Delgado called us. Our parents had been arrested. The bail was set high enough that they probably couldn't pay it right away. I should have felt safer, but mostly I just felt empty. Isabel reacted differently. When I told her, she started crying, not sad tears, but something closer to relief. "It's really over?" she asked again and again. "They can't make me go back?" "It's really over," I told her, holding her close while she wept. The next few weeks were a blur. Legal meetings, therapy appointments, Marissa helped us get set up with a counselor, and just adjusting to a new life. Julian's place was tight with 3 people, but we managed. Isabel slept on the air mattress. I took the couch. Julian kept his bed. He never once complained, not even when Isabel's nightmares woke us all up, or when I accidentally used his toothbrush. Isabel's physical health was still shaky. Years of sleep loss and food restriction had taken a serious toll. We found a doctor who specialized in eating disorders, and she started going twice a week. The first time she ate a real meal without obsessing over calories or checking her reflection afterward, she cried. My face was healing too. The dermatologist was happy with how things were going. She warned me to stay out of the sun though. The irony wasn't lost on me. After all those years of being punished for being in the sun, now I had a real medical reason to avoid it. Eventually our parents made bail, but the court ordered them to stay away from us. They broke that rule almost immediately, emailing from fake accounts, sending messages through family friends. Marissa told us to document every single violation. She said it would help our case even more. Christmas came and went. It was the first holiday I'd ever spent away from my parents. There was some sadness, sure, but mostly there was freedom. Julian's family invited us over, and his mom made traditional Puerto Rican food that reminded me of the dishes my abuela used to make. Isabel ate more that day than I'd seen her eat in years. In January, we got the trial date, March. As it got closer, my anxiety ramped up. I started having panic attacks, waking up in a cold sweat, convinced I was back at my parents' house, chemicals burning my face. Julian suggested we try something to take our minds off it. So he signed us up for a painting class at the local community center. I was terrible at it. My trees looked like broccoli and my skies looked like someone spilled orange soda on the canvas. But for those 3 hours each week, I didn't think about court. I didn't think about scars or fear. I just painted. Turns out, Isabel was amazing. Her first landscape had real perspective, like actual depth and shading. The instructor praised her work, and I saw something light up in my sister's eyes. Pride. Real pride. I never knew I could make something beautiful, she told me afterward. Instead of just trying to be beautiful. In February, Aunt Carmen called again. She talked to other relatives, and to my shock, some of them came forward. Cousins, another aunt they'd all seen bits and pieces over the years. They remembered how obsessed our parents were with our looks, how we flinched when they raised their hands, how we never wore short sleeves even in summer. They're willing to write statements, Aunt Carmen said. They should have said something sooner, but they're trying to help now. Those new testimonies gave our case even more weight. Marissa said she felt good about our chances but reminded us court can be unpredictable. As March rolled in, Isabel was doing better than I'd ever seen her. She was gaining weight. Her hair looked healthier. She was still staying up too late, painting instead of sleeping, but at least she wasn't setting alarms every 3 hours anymore. I was healing too. The scars on my face were still there but fading. I wore my hair natural now. The curls I was taught to hate, I was finally starting to love them. Julian said they looked good on me. And this time, I believed him. Then 1 week before the trial, we got an unexpected visitor. It was Aunt Teresa, our dad's sister. She showed up unannounced at Julian's apartment while he was at work. As soon as we opened the door, she said, "Your parents sent me. They want to make a deal." Isabel tried to close the door, but Aunt Teresa stuck her foot in. "Just hear me out. They'll plead guilty to lesser charges if you both agree not to testify. They'll cover Maya's medical bills. And they promise to leave you alone." I looked over at Isabel. She'd gone completely pale. "We need to think about it," I told Aunt Teresa. "Come back tomorrow." After she left, we called Marissa right away. She told us not to agree to anything without her there and said she'd stop by that night to talk it over. When she came, she was calm but firm. "They're getting nervous. The evidence is strong. They want to avoid serious consequences." "What would happen if we did agree?" Isabel asked. "Would they go to jail?" "Probably not," Marissa said. "They get probation, maybe community service. A fine." I sat there, thinking about all the years we spent being hurt and gaslit and told we weren't enough. I thought about my face, Isabel's body, the shame, the lies. "That doesn't feel like enough," I said. "It's your decision," Marissa told us. "But if you testify, be prepared. It's not easy. Their lawyer will challenge your story. It can be traumatic." That night, Isabel and I talked for hours. A part of me wanted to say yes, to take the deal, avoid court, and just move on. But another part of me needed them to be held accountable. "What do you want to do?" I asked her around midnight. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I want them to know they didn't break us. I want to look them in the eye and tell my story." The next day when Aunt Teresa came back, we gave her our answer. "No deal. We'll testify." The week leading up to the trial was intense. None of us were sleeping well. Even Julian seemed on edge. Isabel dove deep into her art, painting stormy, chaotic images that somehow captured everything I felt but couldn't say. The night before the trial, Julian made us a special dinner, his grandmother's arroz con gandos. He even got a bottle of sparkling cider so we could make a toast. "No matter what happens tomorrow," he said, raising his glass, "you two are the bravest people I know. And whatever comes next, we'll face it together." I looked across the table at Isabel, then at Julian, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. No matter what happened in court, we'd already won something big. We broke the cycle. We found our voices. We started to heal. As our glasses clinked, I knew this next step would be one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But for the first time, I wasn't doing it alone. The morning of the trial came with a full-blown spring thunderstorm. Rain pounded the windows as we got dressed in the best clothes we had. Julian wore a shirt and tie. I picked a simple blue dress that showed off my natural skin. Isabel chose a yellow sundress. It made her look younger, vulnerable, but also strong. We were ready. We drove to the courthouse in silence. None of us said a word. Each of us was stuck in our own thoughts. As we pulled into the parking lot, I saw them, our parents, walking toward the entrance under a big black umbrella. My mom had a hat pulled low over her face like she was trying to hide. My dad walked beside her stiff as a board, back straight, jaw clenched. "You ready?" Julian asked as he shut off the engine. I looked over at Isabel. She gave a small nod. "As ready as we'll ever be," I said. The three of us walked in together, me, Isabel, and Julian, ready to tell the truth, ready to face the people who hurt us, ready to finally move forward. But I'll be honest, walking into that courtroom made me feel like I was gonna puke. My hands were shaking so bad I had to stuff them in my pockets. Julian kept his arm around me, and Isabel clung to my other side like she was afraid to let go. The courtroom wasn't anything like TV. No grand columns or dramatic lighting, just plain wood benches, harsh fluorescent lights, and a judge's bench at the front. Our parents were already there, sitting with their lawyer, a slick-looking guy in a suit that probably cost more than my rent. My mom had her hair pulled back tight, with heavy makeup that couldn't quite hide how tired she looked. My dad didn't even glance our way. Just stared straight ahead like we weren't even there. I couldn't tell if he was trying to ignore us or if he just didn't have the guts to look. Marissa met us at our table and went over a few last-minute things. "Just tell the truth," she said. "Don't let their lawyer shake you." When the judge walked in, everyone stood up. He was this older white guy with thick glasses and a serious look. He explained the charges and how things would work, but I was so nervous I barely heard any of it. I just kept staring at my parents, wondering how people who were supposed to love us could have done what they did. My mom testified first. She took the stand looking all soft and innocent, saying she just wanted us to have the best chances in life. "In our culture," she said with a sad smile, "lighter skin opens doors. I only wanted them to succeed." Their lawyer asked if she meant to hurt us. "Everything I did was out of love," she said. "The cream that caused Maya's reaction, it was just a new brand. How could I have known she'd be allergic?" But when Marissa started her cross-examination and pulled out the financial records Isabel had found, showing years of illegal skin bleaching product purchases, my mom's whole act cracked. That fake smile dropped. She stumbled over her words. I mean, those products work better than the American ones. Everyone in Honduras uses them. Even the ones with mercury?" Marissa asked. "Even the ones banned in the US for being toxic?" My mom looked Marissa in the eye and said, "Beauty requires sacrifice." The whole room went dead silent. Because that was it. That was the truth behind all of it, right there, plain and horrifying. My dad didn't help their case either. He tried to sound like the tough but loving father. Said he just wanted us to have better lives than he did. But when Marissa showed pictures of my burns and Isabel's bruises, he couldn't explain anything. Not really. Then their lawyer turned the spotlight on me. He brought up stuff I'd done as a teenager, staying out late, arguing with them, like that was proof I was just some wild kid making things up. "Isn't it true you've always been jealous of your sister's natural beauty?" he asked. I almost laughed. "No," I told him. "I was jealous that she was willing to destroy herself to get our parents' love, and I wasn't." He didn't know what to say after that. Testifying was harder than I imagined. I had to describe every slap for stepping in the sun, every painful skin bleaching routine, every insult about my hair and skin. I could see the judge's face change as I talked, like each new detail made him a little more disturbed. When I told him about Thanksgiving, how they held me down and put that stuff on my face, how it burned off my eyebrows and caused second-degree burns, how they tried to stop Julian from calling for help, I broke down crying. The defense tried to say I was exaggerating, but the hospital records and photos backed me up. Every word. Isabel's testimony? It was even more powerful. She looked so small up there, frail and quiet. But as she talked about what they'd done, her voice got stronger. She told the court about the alarms she set to disrupt her sleep, the starvation, the constant pressure to be wider, straighter, smaller. "I thought it was normal," she said. "I thought every kid went through this. But when I saw Maya healing after leaving, I realized it wasn't." When she described how Dad grabbed her and left bruises after he discovered the USB, I saw Mom actually flinch. Maybe she hadn't known. Or maybe she just realized the judge was watching. The trial lasted 3 days. By the end, I felt like I'd been run over. Julian was with us through all of it. Took time off work. Brought snacks during breaks. Held my hand when things got hard. Reminded us why we were doing this. On the final day, the lawyers gave their closing arguments. Their lawyer tried to spin it as immigrant parents who meant well but didn't understand American culture. Maybe their methods were flawed, he said. But their intentions were good. Marissa didn't let that slide. This isn't about culture, she said firmly. It's about abuse. It's about two parents who hurt their daughters physically and emotionally, who brought illegal chemicals into their home, who made their children believe that their worth depended on looking white. She held up the photo of my burned face. This is not love, she said. This is abuse. Plain and simple. When the judge said he was ready to give his verdict, I grabbed Isabel's hand so tight I probably cut off circulation. Julian wrapped his arms around us both. In the case of State versus Navarro, the judge began, I find the defendants guilty on all counts. I burst into tears. Isabel did too. Julian held us close, his own eyes glassy. The sentence, 4 years in prison, with parole possible after 20 months. 6 more years on probation. They'd have to cover our medical costs and go through mandatory counseling. A restraining order would stay in effect, no contact unless we allowed it. As the bailiff led them away, Mom looked back at us. For just a second, I thought I saw something like regret. Then she turned her head, stiff and proud. Or maybe just angry. I couldn't tell. Outside, reporters were waiting. I guess the story had made the local news, probably because of how strange the abuse was. Marissa helped us slip past without having to answer questions. We weren't ready to talk publicly. That night, we celebrated in the simplest way, pizza and ice cream at Julian Place. It wasn't fancy, but to me it felt like the best meal I'd ever had. Isabel ate a full slice without checking the calories. I wore a tank top and let my curls out for the world to see. Small things. But they meant everything. What now? Isabel asked as we sat around the living room. Whatever we want, I told her. The months after the trial were all about adjusting. Julian's apartment was too small for 3 people, so we started looking for a bigger place. Isabel got a part-time job at an art supply store. I focused on finishing my last semester. We both stayed in therapy. Some days were rough. I still had nightmares. Isabel still struggled with food and body image. But we were moving forward. A bright spot? Aunt Carmen. She visited from Miami a few times, offered to help with bills, and told us I should have done more when you were kids. Let me help now. With her support and our own savings, we found a small 2-bedroom near campus. Julian helped us move but kept his own place. You two need your space, he said. But honestly, he was over so often it felt like he lived there anyway. 5 months after the trial, I got a letter from my mom. It came through the prison counselor, who added a note saying she'd written it as part of her rehabilitation. We weren't obligated to respond. I stared at that envelope for 2 days before I opened it. It was 1-page, neat handwriting. Maya. I'm sorry. The counselor is helping me realize what I did to you and Isabel was wrong. I was raised the same way by my grandmother, but that's no excuse. I hope you can forgive me someday, but I understand if you can't. There was more, but it all read the same, apologies mixed with reasons that felt like excuses. I showed it to Isabel. She read it and handed it back. Do you believe her? She asked. I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe she's starting to get it. Or maybe she's just saying what the counselor wants to hear. Are you going to write back? I thought about it long and hard. Not yet, I said. Maybe someday. But not now. Me neither, Isabel said. We never heard from our dad. According to Aunt Carmen, he was still bitter. Still blaming me for turning Isabel against them. It didn't surprise me. But it still stung. Life kept moving. I graduated with my degree in psychology, partly inspired by what I'd lived through. I wanted to help other people dealing with family trauma. Isabel started community college and took art therapy classes. She was still fragile in some ways, but getting stronger every day. Julian and I started getting more serious. He proposed on my birthday, almost exactly a year after everything went down that Thanksgiving. It wasn't some big production, just a quiet moment while we were walking through the botanical gardens on campus. I said yes right away. We decided to have a long engagement to give ourselves time to build our careers before tying the knot. 3 years after the trial, we got the call from Marissa. Our parents had been released on parole. She reassured us that the restraining order was still in place and their parole officer knew about everything. Even so, that night I had a full-blown panic attack. I couldn't stop imagining them showing up at our door. Julian stayed over, sleeping on the couch just to help us feel safer. But they didn't come. Aunt Carmen told us they'd moved to another part of the state. Over the years, Mom sent a few more letters, each one a little less defensive, a little more self-aware. I eventually wrote her back. Just a short note saying I was okay, but I wasn't ready for more. Isabel never responded to any of them. For years after the trial, Julian and I got married in a small ceremony at a local park. Isabel was my maid of honor. She looked beautiful, healthy, glowing in a dress that complemented her natural skin tone. Aunt Carmen flew in from Miami and brought along some of the cousins who'd testified on our behalf. Julian's big, loud family welcomed us both with open arms. His mom even said she finally had daughters. We didn't invite our parents. I thought about it. Talked it through with my therapist. But in the end, I just wasn't ready to face them. Maybe one day. Not yet. The wedding was everything I dreamed about as a kid, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. I was surrounded by people who loved me for who I was, not what I looked like. I wore my hair in its natural curls, pinned with tiny white flowers. My makeup was minimal, my skin glowing. The scars on my face were still there if you looked closely, but I didn't try to hide them. They were part of my story. Isabel caught the bouquet. She blushed when Julian's cousin Darren asked her to dance. He'd been hovering for months, but neither of them had made a move. It was sweet seeing her open up to something new. She hadn't dated at all since we'd left our parents' house. She'd been focused on healing. As Julian and I danced our first song, I looked around at everything we'd built. It wasn't perfect, we still had rough days, but it was honest. And it was ours. What are you thinking about? Julian asked, noticing the look on my face. Just how far we've come, I said. 3 years ago, I was in a hospital bed with chemical burns and Isabel was starving herself trying to earn their approval. And now? Look at us. Julian smiled and spun me gently. You're the strongest person I know. You realize that? I laughed. I don't feel strong most days. That's exactly what makes you strong, he said. You keep going anyway. After the wedding, life settled into a new rhythm. Julian and I bought a little house with a backyard and I started a garden. I loved digging in the dirt, feeling the sun on my skin without worrying if I'd get punished for it. Isabel moved into her own apartment near the community college where she started teaching art classes. She was still in therapy, still working through things, but she was thriving in ways I never expected. On the 5th anniversary of that Thanksgiving, I got another letter from Mom. This one felt different. No excuses. No explanations. Just a clear acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused. If you're ever willing, I'd like to see you and Isabel again on your terms in a place where you feel safe. I understand if the answer is no. I brought it to our weekly sister dinner. Isabel read it slowly, face unreadable. What do you think? I asked. She sighed. I don't know. Part of me wants to never see them again. But another part wants closure? I offered. She nodded. Something like that. We talked about it for weeks with each other, with our therapists. Eventually, we decided we'd meet with her. Just her. Not our dad. It would be in a public place with Julian there for support. We picked a coffee shop near our therapist's office just in case we needed a session afterward. The day of the meeting, I was so nervous I could barely breathe. Julian drove us. My hands were shaking too much to hold the wheel. Isabel was pale but calm beside me. When we got there, Mom was already sitting at a corner table holding a mug in both hands. She looked older with gray streaks in her hair that she hadn't dyed. She stood when she saw us but didn't try to hug us. She was respecting the boundaries we'd set in the email. Thank you for coming, she said as we sat down. Julian took the seat at the end of the table. Not hovering, just being there. The conversation started off awkward. Small talk felt weird, but going straight to the deep stuff felt overwhelming. Eventually, Mom took a deep breath and went there. I want you both to know, I understand now. I was wrong. The counseling in prison and afterward, it helped me see it. What your father and I did, it wasn't love. It was harm. Isabel stared down at her coffee. Why? She asked quietly. Why did you hate the way we looked so much? Mom's eyes filled with tears. I didn't hate you. I hated me. My grandmother did the same to me. And I thought I was protecting you from the pain I went through. But all I did was pass it down. We talked for almost 3 hours. It wasn't magical. It wasn't tearful and warm. But it was real. Before we left, she asked if we might be open to seeing her again someday. No pressure, she said quickly. And I understand if you don't want to see your father. He's still working through things. Isabel and I exchanged glances. Maybe I said, "We'll think about it." As we walked back to the car, Julian asked how we were feeling. "Weird," Isabel said. "Like? I'm glad we did it, but I also want to go home and cry for 5 hours." "Same," I said. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her. But I think I understand her a little better now. We did meet again. And then again after that. Slowly, very slowly, we built something new with her. Not a full-on mother-daughter relationship, but something based on honesty and boundaries. She never asked us to see our dad. And we never offered. Time kept moving. Julian and I had our first child, a daughter. We named her Lena after my aunt, the first person in our family to truly believe us. Isabel became the most devoted aunt on earth. She made hand-painted toys, decorated Lena's nursery with tiny canvases, and read her bedtime stories over FaceTime when she couldn't visit. The first time my mom held Lena, I watched her carefully. I was ready to step in if I saw even a flicker of that old judgment. But all she did was smile and whisper, "You're perfect. Just as you are." "She is," I said, taking Lena back into my arms. "And she always will be, no matter what she looks like." Mom nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "She will be." 7 years after that awful Thanksgiving, Isabel and Darren got married on the beach. She wore a sleeveless dress that showed off her natural skin and had her hair loose and curly down her back. She looked strong. She looked happy. A completely different person from the girl who once lived in constant fear, who barely ate, who never slept. During the reception, I pulled her aside. "Did you ever think we'd make it here?" I asked, motioning to everything around us: family, joy, freedom. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "Never," she said. "I thought I'd spend my life trying to disappear. And now I'm trying to take up space," she said. "The right kind of space." I hugged her, careful not to mess up her hair. "You're doing a damn good job of it." As we walked back to the party, I spotted Julian dancing with our daughter. She was standing on his shoes, giggling as he spun her in circles. My heart could have burst from how full it felt. Our journey's not over. It never will be. We still carry our scars, some you can see, some you can't. There are still days where the past feels too close, where memories catch us off guard and leave us shaken. But we built something our parents never gave us. Unconditional love, acceptance of who we really are, and the freedom to just be. And that feels like victory. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss more true life stories just like this one.